All right. Hey, everybody. Super excited to invite my friend and colleague, Mr. Andy Wyman, to join us today. So, Andy's practice is covering one of those really hot button issues that we get after any time a storm comes through. And that's issues with contractors, issues with construction contracts. How do I make sure I'm not ripped off? Is the question that everyone's asking. So, without further ado, let me invite my friend Andy, who is also a phenomenal golfer, to introduce himself.
All right, thanks, Dan. Man, it's good to see you. It's good to be able to provide some good information for your audience. I'm Andy Wyman. I'm the owner of Wyman Legal Solutions, and we're a construction law firm in Boca Raton. And unlike other construction law firms, we are dedicated to helping out homeowners and helping them through some of those nightmare renovation and construction projects. We help them get back to living their lives in the home of their dreams and deal with contractor disputes all day, every day.
Yeah, and that's such a great place to start. And I like how you said that is your focus. A lot of construction attorneys, they want to do a huge high-rise dispute between this millionaire and this billionaire, right? What
Yeah.
your focus of your practice is actually helping the people here in the community, people that'll be watching this, people whose clients are watching this, to make sure they get it right, right? Not even just afterwards, but also before.
Absolutely. So, I mean, homeowners are at such a disadvantage, an informational disadvantage. They don't understand the how this is supposed to work, contracts, liens, all of that stuff that contractors know and understand. And most homeowners go into their projects thinking that their contractor is out there to protect them. There's a lot of good contractors out there, but as a homeowner, you got to protect yourself. And hopefully, we can kind of teach people how to do that today.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things that I talk about with contractors, and obviously, my practice, I deal with a lot of contractors, and I love my good
Mhm.
contractors, right?
Of
But
course.
we do know that there are some people who are maybe a little less scrupulous. But also, besides that point, and I'd love for you to dive into this issue a little bit because you're the perfect guy to kind of square up these issues. But what I see is when you start a project, everyone's interests are aligned.
Mhm.
Everyone's happy. You shake hands. You found the right contractor. They got a great job they're excited about doing. And then, maybe the project progresses a little in the context of what I do. Maybe the insurance proceeds aren't there that everyone expected. Or maybe,
Mhm.
someone else comes in the picture and they're really a specialist on one of the sub trades and you want to use them, but they have their own, a million different ways this can kind of change. And what I see is most frequently the problem is everyone's on the same page to start,
Mhm.
and then somewhere down the line, the interests are not quite so aligned, right?
Right. I mean, and it's two things are really at the heart of that. Number one is leverage, right? So as the more you pay as a homeowner towards a contractor, especially if you're making large payments early on in the project, you are losing leverage. And the contractor, if they are not a professional, if they aren't dedicated to doing things the right way, they start to lose interest in your project. And that is what kind of leads to these projects lasting a very long time, taking too long, costing too much, and the work just not being up to par. The other issue, though, at the heart of all of this is communication and expectations. And this is one of the biggest things people overlook when they come to hiring a contractor in the first place. You got to have somebody that you could communicate well with. You need somebody there that you is listening to you and understanding what you want and is open to and is keeping you updated and delivering on the promises that they are making to you along the way.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, really, for
Yeah.
any working relationship, right? Is that communication aspect. And what we talk about in our practice, primarily handling, insurance claims and insurance disputes, that communication is so critical, so important because these are not very quick transactions, right?
Right.
These aren't things that, hey, here's your Big Mac at McDonald's, here's your money, and we're done. This is a months long project, in some cases years long project. So communication is totally key. One thing I'd love for you to jump back in on was that first point you made was the leverage, right?
Mhm.
And does it matter who has leverage when everything's going perfectly?
Right.
Not so
Right.
much, right?
No, no, not at all. Right.
But when
Exactly.
there's a little bit of a dispute, now all of a sudden, maybe you could jump in on that and just explain, some of the things that you've seen. Because, the one thing that was a little eye opening to me when we first started chatting was that idea of that leverage, right? And that's why you see these projects, they move great through the first 2/3 or first 75%. But
Yeah.
then when a contractor's been paid 95% and you're asking him to come and punch out a bunch of stuff and it's going to take him time and he's busy and he's trying to make money in other jobs, what happens in these situations?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I mean, the situation you just described where they're at 95, they've been paid 95% and they just have to get to the last little bit of punch out. That's actually the situation you kind of want to be in as a homeowner. What you don't want to be in is where you've paid them 95%, but they've only done half the work or something like that. And that's the situation you get into a lot of trouble with. And what I see and foresee happening in situations, and I've seen it when there's emergencies on the ground, when contractors are hard to come by, and you're, as a homeowner, just thankful you've got somebody talking to you and showing up to your house, you are in a very vulnerable position. And that's when some certain contractors might try to extract from you a very large upfront payment. And I tell all my clients, and we try to help them before they get into the trouble, of course. You want to kind of think of the payment schedule under one of these contracts as like a bell curve, right? Whatever you're coming up and paying with up front, you want to make sure you're holding at least that much at the very end, with the bigger payments to happen in the middle of the job. You don't want to front load your payments up front, because that is you're stepping down the road towards disaster.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I love the way you kind of simplify that is, let's talk about a bell-shaped curve. So a little bit of money up front. Hey, understandable. Get on your calendar, get the project started. You can order some stuff. You're not upside down on the job to
Right.
start, no problem. And then as the work is proceeding, we're getting hot and heavy and we see the work happening. Sure, let's release some more money. Let's make sure this
Right.
job is still moving for you, make sure it's still profitable and a good job you're interested in. And then towards the end, when there's maybe less work that needs to be done, you've already got the substantial portion done, then the
Right.
payments that are still out there are maybe a little less, right?
Right, exactly. And there should be, look, there comes a point in the project where it's considered substantially complete. And what that basically means is that the project, your home is ready to be occupied again. If the work required a permit, which certainly a lot of the work post hurricane storm cleanup will require a permit, it includes making sure that it's passed all of your final inspections. You want to make sure you're holding a good chunk of money for that event, and that you're making a payment to the contractor at that point in time that is substantial, and yet you're still holding a little bit back for those punch list items that you're talking about at the end.
So I love that. If I was a homeowner in this situation right now watching this, I would write that down. I would say, make sure I'm not releasing that most substantial portion until after I know the work is also substantially completed, because I
Right.
want to retain to have some of that leverage. How would a homeowner approach, making sure that happened for them?
Right. I mean, it all starts at the beginning, and the foundation of all that is a contract that is really clear on its payment terms. And again, when you're in the heat of the moment post storm and you've got a contractor who's there talking to you, you're going to feel pressure, and that contractor may be putting that pressure on you to sign something that they put right in front of your face before you've got the opportunity to read it, or more importantly, show it to someone who knows better. Show it to an attorney, a construction attorney, or someone who's super experienced in construction, who has your interest at heart, to take a look at the contract and make sure it's got things in it that protect you. If, as long as you lay it out in writing in the contract, when those payments are going to be made, what milestones they're tied to, and you do it with specificity, you'll be protected, and there won't be any gray area there for the contractor to demand money from you before he's earned it.
Yeah, and I think what it sounds like is that what we want to do is have that contract. And I'm a lawyer; I'm not a contract lawyer, but I know enough about it to be a little
It'd be
dangerous. But
dangerous.
it's a meeting of the mind, and it's a
Yeah.
memorialization of the
Yeah.
duties, rights, and obligations of both parties. That's all it is. It's an agreement, formalized agreement. So
Right. And
yeah,
yeah.
if
So
you
what I was
have
going to say is that importantly, when clients come to me at a point in time after their project has fallen apart, and I ask to see their contract, if they've signed one, or what they're calling a contract, it tends to be nothing more than, here's the work you're going to do and here's the dollar amount. That's not a contract. That's a proposal. It's nothing that protects you. And it's too late to think about protecting yourself after things have gone wrong. You need to think about that at the beginning and make sure you're putting the things in place that are going to protect you should things go wrong. Nothing would be better than to draft this contract and never have to look at it again. But Unfortunately, that's not really the reality. And if your contractor is telling you anything verbally that is important to you, that you want to make sure is promised to you and that you get, it better be in writing, and it has to be in a contract and signed by your contractor. Otherwise, you can forget actually getting that from your contractor.
That's the second thing that you said, that if I'm a homeowner watching this right now, I'm going to write that down.
Yep.
Anything a contractor tells you, it's only good if it's written down. And again,
Yep.
the idea being, you know, we use sometimes the analogy of like, you know, a marriage, right? People who have a prenup, and I'm not getting into the, you know, pros and cons of that, but just a similar structure, right? The idea is the wedding's gonna be great, the marriage is gonna be long, perfect, happy, all that stuff. But you know, God forbid something crazy happens. We've already kind of talked about how it's going to work out. We don't have to
Yep.
deal with it when everyone's aggravated and the leverage might have shifted and who knows what craziness. Let's just knock it out, not have to worry about it.
Right.
Is that an apt analogy?
That is a very apt analogy. And so and a good contractor should want that too, right? So
Nailed it.
if you've
Nailed it.
exactly. So if you're getting any kind of pressure from a contractor to sign something without reading it, or not sign a contract, or to do work that requires a permit but you don't need to pull the permits, or anything like that, those are red flags, and you need to, understand. Look, your home is likely your largest investment you have in your life, right? It's the most important. It's the most valuable asset you have, and not only that from a monetary perspective, but I mean, it's where you come home to with your family, and you can feel safe at the end of the hectic day out in the world, right? And when that your home life gets disrupted, and you need to, from a storm or any other reason, and now you need to fix it and bring somebody else in to your home to deliver to you, something that is going to either provide you years of joy or years of misery. Protect yourself. This is a huge transaction that you're entering into, one of the biggest probably in your life. Get protected and make sure you've got a contract in place that's going to protect you.
That's such great advice. And you know, a lot of what happens, because we're talking specifically in the wake of Hurricanes Helene and Milton.
Right.
You've been keying in on it, and I think it's important to do that. But what happens is people want to just get it done. They're stressed out. They don't know. They're
Right.
uncertain. All these different emotions. What if you've watched some of my lives for the people out there? What I'm always telling people is slow down. You don't have to make every decision today, right?
Right.
Let's slow down. Let's take a deep breath. Let's start, prioritize, and execute. Right? Listen, if you have to do flood cuts, you have to do flood cuts. Doesn't mean you have to pick out colors on your tile roof that, you know, you don't have the insurance proceeds for. No,
Right.
let's slow down. Let's get some expert advice. There's tons of
Mhm.
free, good resources out there. We're certainly working to provide. I know your office is
Yep.
too. To that point, because I want to talk about permits, which is going to be another huge thing that people are facing in these situations, likely they've never faced before. But to kind of wrap up a pretty bow on this quick discussion about contracts, you have like one, 3, or 5 tips for someone that maybe they're not looking to have a lawyer involved yet, but just a best practices, something they can take home from watching this discussion?
Yes. So a couple of the things that are on contracts that are super important. Number one is to make sure that the scope of the work is written in a way that it's real clear that you're getting the things that you were promised. Like I said, you could talk to your contractor and they could explain to you what you're going to get, but it better be written into some type of list of things that you're getting. Again, if it's important to you, make sure it's written into your contract. The second thing is your payment schedule, like we discussed, your progress payment schedule. You want to make sure that it is you're trying to hold as much money as you can throughout as long a period of time as you can, but make it real clear at what intervals you are making payments and at what percentages. And it needs to be written very clearly. So like, for example, we talked earlier about substantial completion, or the payment being due upon the completion of the project. Completion of the project is a vague term. It could mean one thing to me and another thing to you and another thing to your contractor. So if it's truly your intention or desire to make sure that last payment is made after final inspections have passed, say that. Put in there that it's after final inspections have passed. A third thing you're going to want in your contract, look, is something having to do with change orders. What happens if during the course of the job, either you change your mind on something you want done, or there's a circumstance or a condition that no one anticipated that now requires a larger scope of work. You want to make sure that all those changes get documented along the way. And that's done in something called a change order. It is put in writing by the contractor. It is signed by you, acknowledging not only how much extra work they're doing, what extra it's going to cost you, and how much additional time that might add to the length of your job. So you want to make sure that those things are memorialized properly, and your contract needs to provide for that process. Otherwise, these changes can happen and you can get hit with an enormous bill for work that your contractor said, oh, that wasn't included. So and it happens all the time, and it's a big source of frustration. And finally, two other things you want to have in there. One, make sure you have something in there that discusses how you're going to resolve a dispute should one arise between you and the contractor. Mediation is a great option to require people to go through before ever getting into a lawsuit, right? So you want to try to make it as easy as possible to resolve disputes on the ground. Maybe reference over to another industry professional who can kind of judge who's right, who's wrong, to get the project back moving again. And then finally, you actually want to make sure you have an attorney fee provision in your contract, because in the state of Florida, everyone is responsible for their own attorney's fees in a dispute, unless you have a couple of circumstances, including you have some language in your contract that says, should we need to go to court to enforce this, the winner gets their fees paid for by the loser. I can't tell you how many people come to me assuming it's the opposite, and assuming that, well, that contractor will have to pay my fees, right? Well, let me see the contract you signed. Nothing in there about it. No, that means, unlike, certain areas of law, this area of law, this construction area, you're paying a lawyer by the hour to help you in most circumstances. So you're coming out of pocket and paying to try to chase somebody. So you want to make sure you can try to get your fees paid back to you at the end, if and when you win.
That's great. I mean, that's like a fast five that,
Yep.
again, people could, take to heart. If they followed that information, they'd be probably ahead of, a significant
90%
portion
of the people out there. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me ask you, if someone was to follow that advice and follow it well, how likely would they be to have a dispute that would need someone like you to come in and fix?
So, they are less likely to need someone like me to come in and fix a dispute, but just as important as having a good contract is knowing how to find a good contractor,
Okay.
right? So picking and vetting a contractor is something people just don't know how to do. It's often they're hiring the guy who showed up when he said he was going to show up, or maybe just the only guy who bothered who priced the job low, and you find that attractive for one reason or another. It's really not the criteria you should use when you hire a contractor to do a job like this. So you have to be in partnership with the right person who has the right frame of mind and who is in a win-win mentality with you. Like, there's no reason this project shouldn't finish on time, on budget. The contractor makes money. You get what you're looking for as the homeowner. Where a lot of contractors out there look at it like win-lose, right? Like either I'm going to win or I'm going to lose in this relationship, and they're going to do what they can to win, or they don't care if you win as well, right? Like it's nice to them if you get what you want, but
I've
at the
seen
end
a
of the
lot of
day,
them. I've seen a lot.
at the end of the day, it's what they want, right? So you got
Yeah,
to pick the right person and find the right contractor.
I think that's great advice. So if we tag that together and we say, hey, listen, we've got the right contractor, we're in the right relationship with the right
Right.
professional. And that professional, if they are a real professional and they do have that win-win approach, which, that's the goal, of course, then they should actually be excited about the project, but also having their rights protected by a thorough, well-prepared, well thought out contract as well, right?
And a fair contract, right? A contract that administers the project and moves it along to everybody's benefit, right? You don't want a contract as a homeowner that's so one-sided in your favor that the
No one's gonna
contractor
work
can't
for it.
do their work. No one will sign it. And even if they do, they'll quickly realize that they're in a situation that's not good for them, and your project will stall. Even if you've got all the legal rights in the world, the goal is not to have a good legal case. The goal is to get your house fixed and get back in there and win it and live in it and enjoy it and have Thanksgiving and Christmas at your house. That's the goal, right? So you don't want a project that drags on, right? So
I think that's great. I love that you bring it back. And we're looking at the big picture, right? And if you're doing your job well, there's not a dispute. It's not expensive for the homeowner where they have to pay you hourly tons of money and the contractor doesn't finish the job. If they're coming to you at the appropriate time and you're helping people, guide them through selecting the right contractor, preparing the contracts, it's the old Benjamin Franklin saying, a stitch in time saves nine, right?
Right.
If you put
Right.
that stitch there, it doesn't rip, you don't have nine stitches, right? For
Yeah.
anyone who couldn't follow that.
Is that what that means? Okay, I was really unsure of what the heck that actually meant, but I appreciate you
So,
telling me.
that contract's gonna be that legal stitch at the
Yeah.
time you need it. And, just to summarize and, obviously guide my thinking here is what
Mhm.
we're talking about is working with the right person, having the terms of the work that's going to be done in the scope laid out, the timelines, the pricing, how do we handle change orders? How do we handle disputes if they do arise, right? Sometimes things happen,
Right.
so, but let's find a way that we can move forward. And then having all, and then the attorney's fees provision, but all of that really good sound advice. What it sounds to me like is going back to what you originally said about evening the leverage, evening the playing field between someone who's, if someone has all the money and you still need them to do something, you don't have any leverage. Likewise, if you're being, like a terrible stickler and your contract makes it so no one's going to work for you, you're not going to get that good relationship. So it sounds like the crux of all of this is really the work you do. And I do want to jump in on permits and maybe some other quick hits. But Andy, if someone's in this position, their home is destroyed, they have a flood claim, a wind claim, they don't know what to do. Maybe we're helping them with the insurance claim. Maybe they're trying it on their own. Maybe they got a great local licensed public adjuster, whatever. But they don't know how to put this together. How would you be able to help that person? And is there a fit in your practice for homeowners just to call you and figure out how you can help?
Absolutely. So we started out really just fighting these fights with people, right? And you do the stitch in time, save nine. I refer to it as you don't want to end up here with me as your surgeon on my operating table. You want to come to me for a little preventative medicine, right? That's when I can be most valuable to you. So yes, so we often will guide and provide contracts and language to homeowners for them to use in their contracts with their contractors. And so we will review a document that comes to you from a contractor, or we will help prepare one from scratch. And we will also help vet contractors for you.
Cool.
So if you come
Cool.
to now, I don't like recommending contractors to people, but if you come to me with a contractor or two that you have that you think you want to work with, we know where to find the information that is going to be the most helpful to you in making the decision if you're likely getting into bed with the wrong person. We know where to look to find if they're involved in lawsuits or liens, or if they've had license complaints, or if there's any bankruptcies that are relevant to the owners of the company. You want to take a look at believe it or not, their online reviews. Super important. If they were a 5-star company for a very long time, and now over the past 6 or 9 months, you see a lot more complaints, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. It probably means that something is going wrong inside the company, and that they're spiraling of some kind. And that's when those contractors get desperate and they start asking for big upfront payments from you so they could go finish their last job that they've got, and then they get into this vicious rob Peter to pay Paul cycle. So so it's super important to do your homework upfront on vetting contractors, and there are a couple of places you can go to try to put the odds in your favor of finding the right guy. The state of Florida has a licensing, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation licenses contractors. It's myfloridalicense.com. You can go there, you can put somebody's name in and find out if they're licensed, find out if they've had any complaints against their license. So obviously licensure is super important. And then, reach out to your local building association. Florida has a Florida Home Builders Association, and then on the local level, in all the different counties and areas around the state, there are local home builder associations, and they can help introduce you to professional builders and contractors who are more likely to understand what you and I are talking about right now and why all of this is super important. So that as opposed to just finding someone online or the people who knock on your door after a storm. You want to be certainly careful of those folks.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I didn't know there were local associations that I could
Yeah.
reach out to, so that's really helpful.
Yeah.
And what I would almost now I'm putting it together, and a lot of these lives that I've been doing is I'm learning as I go as well.
Yeah.
I'm an expert in what I do, but I'm not an expert in everything, right? So it's really good for me. What I'm kind of putting together is, if I'm having a serious construction project here, or maybe a more relatively minor construction project, I want to reach out to you, Andy, and I want to say, hey, I've got a couple contractors that I'm talking to. but I'd like us, just make sure you as the expert think that these are
Right.
guys who can do it the right way. And
Right.
additionally, I either have a contract that I was looking at, or I want you to kind of help me draft this contract to make sure this project goes right. And that should, who are we working with? Under what terms are we working with? That should run these projects pretty
Yep.
straight. Um,
Yes.
One thing I want to touch base on is, you mentioned it, is people rap, knocking on your door. Now,
Yep.
there's nothing, and I know you didn't say this, and so I'm just reiterating, there's nothing specifically wrong with that, right? But generally speaking, the let me say the likelihood of you being ripped off if you're calling local licensed reputable companies versus someone showing up at your door is probably significantly different, right?
Yes, for sure.
So
Absolutely. No question
so
about
if
it.
someone does knock on the door, there's nothing wrong with that. And we need out of state contract. We need out of town contract. There's too much work when
Right.
these storms come through. It's a fact. As long as these people are getting local licenses, doing things the right way, of course. But we
Hmm.
want good contractors from across the country to come down and help service these local communities. There's nothing wrong with that. But if someone knocks on my door, right, and I don't know them, but they seem, clean cut, nice. I like them. I'm communicating well. They show me nice reviews. They show me a slick packet, and I like them. How should I approach that, Andy? And, obviously calling you would be the gold standard. And I would recommend that to anyone watching. But that being said, you and I live in the real world where not everyone wants to pick up the phone and call a lawyer. Totally
Right.
understand it. So what's like the kind of quick advice for that person, to kind of vet that person who's knocked on their door?
Yeah, and I think you said it earlier. It's take it slowly, right? Like, so it's obviously what you discussed, what you mentioned is super important about being able to have a good rapport with the person. You do want to understand though whether or not the person you're talking to is likely to be the person you're dealing with throughout the course of your job. I mean, if you're getting someone who's knocking on your door, you're right. It doesn't automatically mean that you should not do business with that person. It's a data point, something for you to consider. How you found them, how they came to you. You didn't know them from Adam before they knocked on your door, and that's just something to consider, that they didn't come from a trusted source necessarily. But you're going to want to do your diligence on the company. You're going to want to understand who is going to be at your house that you're going to be dealing with throughout the course of your project. Person knocking on your door, most likely a salesperson, or could be a salesperson who's, of course, I mean, that's what salespeople do, right? They're friendly and they're good at talking to you. But yeah, so you want to just make sure you're doing whatever due diligence you can. Don't, certainly I wouldn't encourage you to sign something right then and there from the person who knocked on your door without really doing some background. And we can help do that for you, or you can go to some of these. And you brought up a good point actually about, these out of state contractors who are coming in to handle the overflow of work that we're about to have. The state will usually, or and even on the county level, they'll advise as to how these contractors can legitimately be doing this, and what they need to do in order to, register or certify themselves to be licensed and authorized to do this kind of work here where they may not have been before. And
Yeah.
so you want to try to keep up with, in your locality, what is required there of these contractors, and make sure that this person is doing everything by the book.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I follow that clearly because of who I am, and I'm in this profession. Of course, anyone out there watching, if that sounds like a lot, just reach out to Andy's office. They're great.
Absolutely.
Work with them on a bunch of stuff. The clients love them. They're accessible. All that good stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and because to me, I can meet a contractor at lunch, and I know if I want to work with the guy or not. Like I just, my spider senses go up, or I just know because I'm in this industry. I've worked with so
Right.
many people. I've worked with hundreds of roofing companies and contracting companies in different regards, and thousands of project managers, sales guys, whatever. I've been helping either advise or work through issues. So I know I can meet a guy and probably a handshake. I kind of can size them up pretty well. But if I'm a homeowner, this is the first time I've been through this stuff. Without diving into how your services are specifically priced or anything like
Hmm.
that, I do want people to know that this is an approachable service. So could you
Absolutely.
talk about how your services do work? And you don't have to get into
Hmm.
the specifics,
Sure.
but for people watching, I want them to know that they can pick up the phone, they can call Wyman Legal Solutions, and they can
Mhm.
get good help. And it's not going to cost them an arm and a leg.
Right. So that's a very good point. So the types of things that we do on the front end to help people, we do on a flat fee or a fixed fee basis, right? So we want you to be encouraged to call us for help. And it could be scary calling a law firm if you've never had to do that before, but we've got some terrific, intake people who are very empathetic. They'll understand the situation you're in and the situation you want to be, and then you'll get on a call with one of our attorneys who can talk to you about the various things that we can do to help you out, that we do on a fixed fee basis. Which means, what that means is that you're going to pay one price, and for that one price you're going to we'll get you to the point that we promise to get you to, which in this case might be, hey, doing the background search on your contractor, or getting a contract in place for you that's going to protect you. And that will include however many revisions or drafts are necessary, how much talking to you is required, how much dealing with the contractor or their lawyer is required. We price it at one price because we don't want you to be afraid to pick up the phone and call us and get the advice that you need in the moment that you need it. And so, so we do that. And then, depending on the size of your project, I mean, we even have a service where we, on a monthly, or sometimes fixed fee, but sometimes monthly fee basis, we're on retainer with you through your project to give you the advice and the guidance you need to help facilitate and manage the project with you during the course of the project, to make sure that you're getting the paperwork you should get every time you make a payment, and that you're not ending up with a lien on your home.
Yeah, that's terrific. And,
Yeah.
I appreciate that also too, as someone who helps people out in these situations, that you do offer that service, and
Yep.
that you do it approachably, because people need help. And this may not be for the person in Orlando with a small shingle roof with one contractor, and they go to the local company that did their roof 10 years ago. Like
Right.
that may not necessarily require, getting someone involved. You can take that risk on, let me say, rather
Yeah.
than having someone protect you. But when, a lot of the projects we do, I'm an $11 million apartment complex, right?
Hmm.
I'm
Absolutely.
absolutely having the owner call you to make sure that he's dealing with contractors the right way, because so much is at stake and it's so
Right.
complex. Now, one of the things that I've been talking to people on these lives about is that you have to change the mindset. No one's taking money from you out of your project. You're hiring
Right.
someone to perform a service that, but for that person doing it, you would have to do it. So what
Right.
the one I talk about most is like public adjusters. People are like, oh, they're going to take some of my money. It's like, no, they're going to be compensated for performing services that, but for hiring them, you would have to do. And
Right.
and that's the same mindset, Andy, with you talking about managing a construction project. Now we deal with a lot of, we're out in Davis Island in Tampa, and some of these areas very hard hit, beautiful multi-million-dollar mansions, Captiva, Sanibel, Anna Maria Island. These are people who don't even live in the state. So for them to be able to hire, you, a local licensed lawyer, and your team who
Yep.
can oversee the project, make sure the milestones are hit. If we're talking about a multi-million-dollar job, this is a small fraction of the cost of that job, and it's an investment in the
Right.
rest of the job, right?
That's the word I was going to use. It is an investment in the rest of the job. And to use your example of the adjuster, not only is the adjuster doing something that you would otherwise have to do, they're going to do it better than you, because this
Better.
is what they do, right? And look, to that end, with the construction management, we've aligned ourselves with the Florida Home Builders Association has something called the Florida Certified Master Builders Program, and so we're a sponsor of that program. And what that program does is, there's only 36 certified master builders in the entire state of Florida, and that is it's an application process, it's financial stability, it's ethical, it's experience in the industry, and the whole purpose and goal of this organization is to raise the bar of all the construction contractors and builders throughout the state of Florida. There are other people in that organization that are not builders, but like me, are not builders, but they are kind of the best of um, permit expediters, civil engineers, warranty home inspectors, all these other folks who support the building trades and are critical and crucial in moving a big project along. So when you retain a firm like ours to help you in this way, I've got these connections with these other cream of the crop type of professionals in the state of Florida, whose goal it is to improve the the construction industry and its performance, and how it provides services to everyone in the state of Florida. So that's we call on those folks to help out too.
And that's terrific. And that's, that team approach, that collaborative approach. And I know that,
Yep.
we've worked together great in the past. And With that being said, we've hit probably about 30 minutes here, and I don't want to monopolize your time. Maybe what we'll do is schedule another event where we could talk about maybe some permits and some other, pressing issues.
Oh yeah.
But Andy, I really, really appreciate you sharing your knowledge, your expertise. You're one of the best in the business. You're also a heck of a good guy. I have a very important question for you before we ask you to tell us where we can connect with you. You've got a 180-yard carry over the water, par 3. What club are you hitting, buddy? I know you're a big hitter.
I am hitting an 8 iron.
8 iron. I mean, that's
I'm hitting
distance.
an 8 iron, and I'm probably putting a
Yeah.
little extra mustard on it just to make sure it
And
gets there.
so yeah, exactly. Last time we played, you actually won the closest to the hole at that tournament. I think you left
I
it
also
maybe.
won long drive.
Yeah. Well, some would say more important.
And more importantly, right.
But yeah, so well,
Yeah.
Andy, really appreciate it. Where can people find you? And obviously, we'll put your information here too. But what's the easiest way to
Awesome.
find you?
Yeah, sure. So we're in Boca Raton, and on the internet, you can go to Wyman Legal Solutions with an S at the end.com. Our phone
Cool.
number is 561-361-8700. And or you can email me at andy@wymanlegalsolutions.com.
That's excellent. Is there a cost to call you? A cost for a quick chat, like, hey, whatever?
Not at all. No, we don't charge for initial consultations or anything like that.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. And we really want to lower the barrier for people to get the help they
Yeah,
need. So, Andy,
absolutely.
really appreciate it. I'm going to have you drop off here and I'm going to just give some closing remarks, but we'll schedule another one. I think this was a really great chat.
This was great. Was happy to do this. I'll be happy to do it anytime.
All right. You're the man, Andy. Thanks.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. That was my friend Andy Wyman. He's a great guy. And obviously in construction law, there's all types of construction lawyers, all types of disputes. The guys who are doing the Empire State Building, they have construction lawyers. Now, if you're a homeowner in Florida following a storm, is that the lawyer for you? Probably not. Probably not interested in helping you out. But Andy's practice is solely dedicated. Well, let me not say solely because I don't know that, but Andy's practice is primarily dedicated to helping homeowners navigate construction issues, construction contracts, getting everything straightened out on the upfront side so that I don't have to refer you to him when you do have a dispute. So I would highly, highly encourage you, if you're doing a reconstruction project secondary to insurance proceeds, add some more complication. If you've got interior, you've got exterior, you've got windows, you've got doors, you've got roof, this is the sort of thing, it might be a prudent investment for you. And obviously the phone call and see what they offer is free, to see if this is the sort of thing that would help you navigate this process as best as possible. So, I'm going to sign off now here. Obviously, y'all know where to reach me. We're going to keep having helpful guests on and keep trying to get good information out there to everybody. So appreciate everyone from watching and continue those questions coming. That's how I knew we needed to get Andy on. That's how I'll know who the next guests we need to get on are. So anything we can do to help, feel free to reach out. Thanks.